There comes a time in a man's life when the noise quiets down. The house is still. The phone doesn't ring much anymore. You wake up, make your coffee, sit by the window, and you begin to reflect, not just on the day ahead, but on life itself. And if you're a man in your 70s, like many others across this country, one question has probably floated into your thoughts now and then. Do I still need a woman in my life? Now, that question might feel awkward to even ask out loud. It sounds a bit vulnerable, maybe even foolish to some. After all, isn't that kind of thing meant for younger folks? Dating, romance, partnership? But the truth is, even at 70 or 75 or beyond, the heart still whispers its own questions. And the answers aren't always what people expect. Let me tell you about Walter. He's 74, retired, lives in a small town in Arizona, alone in the same house he and his wife once shared. She passed away 8 years ago. The first year after she was gone, he said the silence nearly crushed him. He'd wake up and reach across the bed out of habit. He'd set out 2 cups of coffee, then correct himself. Grief, as anyone who's been through it knows, is a strange visitor. It comes without knocking and lingers long after it's welcome. But over time, something unexpected happened. Walter began to settle into his solitude, not just get used to it, but actually find peace in it. He started taking long walks alone in the mornings. He read books he never had time for before. He listened to music without distraction. The silence, once suffocating, became something else, calm, sacred even. That's when he began to ask himself, maybe I don't need to fill this space with another person. Maybe I don't need a woman beside me to feel complete. Not anymore. Now, that goes against what many people assume about older men. There's this stereotype that men can't live without a woman, that once they're widowed or divorced, they'll rush to find another partner just to feel whole again. But Walter's story, and many others like his, tell a different truth. Being alone doesn't always mean being lonely. That's a distinction most people fail to understand, especially younger folks. They think solitude equals sadness. But for many older men, solitude becomes a form of healing, a return to themselves after decades of being everything to everyone else. Husbands, fathers, providers, protectors, always responsible, always needed. And then suddenly, the noise fades and they're left with just themselves. And maybe for the first time in their life, that feels okay. Walter told me there's something deeply liberating about waking up and not having to negotiate every decision. He eats what he wants, when he wants. He spends money how he chooses. If he wants to sit in silence for hours, no one asks if something's wrong. If he wants to play an old record and sip whiskey at noon, he can. There's a sense of ownership over his time, his space, his emotions. That doesn't mean he never thinks about companionship. Of course he does. He's human. There are evenings when he misses the sound of someone else in the house. Times when the holidays roll around, and the quiet feels heavier than usual. But he's learned to be okay with those feelings. He doesn't run from them or try to drown them in distractions. He simply lets them pass, like a breeze through an open window. What really changed his mindset, he says, was realizing that his desire for peace had grown stronger than his desire for partnership. That's a powerful shift. In our younger years, we chase connection, validation, someone to share the highs and lows with. But after 70, many men reach a point where they've had enough conflict, enough compromise. They no longer want fireworks. They want calm. And that brings us to an important truth. Just because you can still love deeply doesn't mean you want to start over. Just because you still feel desire doesn't mean you need someone beside you to feel complete. The heart may still beat with longing, but the mind learns to find satisfaction in simpler things. This doesn't make older men cold or closed off. In fact, many of them become more emotionally aware in their solitude. They reflect on past mistakes, regrets, and also on moments of quiet joy they never fully appreciated at the time. And in doing so, they find a new kind of clarity, one that doesn't demand another relationship to feel fulfilled. But that doesn't mean the need for love disappears entirely. It just evolves. It softens. It becomes less about physical touch and more about emotional warmth. Less about passion and more about presence. Walter sometimes speaks about his late wife, not with sadness, but with softness. He says he'll always love her, but he no longer feels the need to replace her. That love still lives in his heart. It just looks different now. It's quieter, but still real. He finds joy in his grandchildren, in old friends, in moments of stillness under the desert sky. And that, to him, is enough. So when people ask, do men over 70 still need women? It's not a yes or no answer. For some, yes, the longing remains strong, and they seek companionship in any form. For others, like Walter, they've reached a place of acceptance, not because they've given up on love, but because they've made peace with themselves. It's also important to recognize the emotional strain that can come from starting over late in life. Relationships at this age are different. They come with baggage, emotional, financial, even physical. Sometimes, what seems like a fresh start can stir up more stress than comfort. And many older men, after a lifetime of navigating responsibilities, simply don't want to invite that back into their lives. That's not bitterness, it's self-preservation, it's wisdom. It's understanding your own needs and honoring them without apology. Now, none of this is meant to suggest that love after 70 isn't beautiful. It can be. There are men who remarry in their 80s and find joy they never expected. But the key here is choice, not pressure, not shame, not society's outdated idea that a man alone is a man lacking something. Sometimes, the most courageous thing an older man can do is stand firmly in his own quiet, contented life and say, I am enough. And for the ones watching this video who are living alone, perhaps for the first time in decades, you need to know this. Your life isn't lesser because you're not in a relationship. You're not broken, or behind, or forgotten. You're simply walking a path that many others don't yet understand. And on this path, there is strength, dignity, and even joy. There's something powerful about not needing anyone to validate your worth. Something peaceful about being in your own company without discomfort. And if you found that peace, if you're building your days around your own rhythm, your own needs, your own quiet joys, then you found something many people spend a lifetime searching for. There's a part of Walter's story that always lingers with me, and it's this. He told me that sometimes when the world outside gets too loud, when the news feels too dark or the memories too sharp, he simply sits on his back porch with a glass of iced tea, watching the sky change colors at sunset. He says that moment, when the light begins to fade, but the world hasn't gone fully dark, feels a lot like this chapter of life. A little quieter, a little slower, but no less beautiful. It's in that stillness, he says, that he hears the real answer to the question that started all. Do I still need a woman in my life? The answer has changed over time, and not in the way most people expect. Years ago, the answer would have been yes, without hesitation. He needed someone to share responsibilities, to laugh with, to hold during the hard times. But now, at 74, the need is no longer about filling a space beside him. It's about filling the space within him. And in many ways, that space has been gently, patiently filled by something else entirely. Peace, acceptance, and a quiet kind of self-love. He doesn't deny that he still longs for connection now and then. We all do. Human beings are wired for closeness. But what he's learned is that closeness doesn't always require a romantic partner. It might come from a Sunday phone call with an old friend, a warm hug from a grandchild, a deep breath of fresh air in the early morning, even a memory that suddenly visits you on a quiet afternoon, bringing tears and comfort in equal measure. The truth is, the way older men experience love shifts with age. It becomes less about being needed and more about being understood, less about constant companionship and more about occasional, meaningful connection. And that's something no one prepares you for when you're younger. They don't tell you that one day you might stop craving the excitement of new love and start craving the stability of your own thoughts. That one day, your deepest comfort might come from knowing you don't need anyone to feel whole. That doesn't mean you shut the door on love. It just means you open new ones to things that bring joy in quieter ways. A well-tended garden, a morning walk, a favorite old song that still makes your chest swell. life becomes softer, not smaller. Walter once told me that he doesn't feel lonely because he doesn't lie to himself anymore. He doesn't pretend that he's the same man he was at 40 or even 60. He doesn't chase things that don't fit the shape of his life anymore. And that honesty, he believes, is what keeps him grounded. It's what allows him to live each day without regret, even if some evenings still carry a touch of longing. That's something many older men wrestle with, this unspoken sense that being alone means something went wrong, as if life is a race where everyone is supposed to cross the finish line hand in hand. But that's not how it works. Some people walk with partners. Others walk alone. What matters is the walk itself, the pace, the peace, the purpose. And here's the hard truth that many are afraid to say out loud. Not every relationship in old age brings joy. Some bring stress, conflict, even sadness. Repartnering late in life can sometimes reopen old wounds or create new ones. There's worry about money, health issues, blended families, even loss of personal freedom. Many older men quietly wonder if the cost of companionship might be higher than the reward, and they feel guilty for thinking that way. But they shouldn't, because it's not selfish to protect your peace. It's not wrong to say, "I've lived through storms, and now I choose calm." That's not giving up, it's growing up. There's also something to be said about how older men are expected to behave. Society often tells them to stay strong, to not complain, to move on quickly. But strength can also look like sitting with your feelings, like admitting that you miss someone but choosing not to replace them, like choosing to be content rather than constantly reaching for more. Walter's final confession is this: he doesn't need a woman in the way the world expects him to. What he needs now is warmth, understanding, peace, and the space to simply be himself. If a woman came into his life who brought those things without chaos or compromise, he might welcome her. But he's not looking, he's not aching, he's not empty. He's finally found something that so many chase their whole lives: enough. And that's the quiet surprise of this stage of life, that what we once saw as a loss, a partner, a routine, a role, can become the doorway to a deeper kind of wholeness. Not because someone else fills it, but because we finally learn to fill it ourselves. So if you're a man over 70 watching this, and you've chosen to live alone, or you found yourself alone after years of togetherness, know this: you're not broken. You're not strange. You haven't failed. You're walking a path that many never get the chance to understand. A path of peace, reflection, and quiet freedom. And if there are days when you wonder, like Walter once did, whether you're missing something, let those thoughts come and go without judgment. Missing something doesn't mean you're lacking. It means you're human. But you get to decide what you need now. You get to rewrite the story. Maybe love now means writing letters to your grandchildren. Maybe it means planting a tree and watching it grow. Maybe it means sitting with your dog at dusk, saying nothing, just being. Whatever it is, it counts. It matters, and it belongs to you. To those who still believe a man without a woman is incomplete, let them believe what they want. You know better. You've lived long enough to know that peace isn't loud, and fulfillment doesn't always come in the form of another person. Sometimes it comes in the form of silence that doesn't ache, mornings that don't rush, nights that don't demand anything but rest. You've earned that, and you're allowed to choose it. So do men over 70 still need women? Some do, some don't. The real question is, what do you need now, in this moment, for this version of you? Only you can answer that. And that answer, whatever it is enough. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Are you living alone? Do you feel at peace with that decision? Or are you still figuring it out? Share your story in the comments. You never know who you might inspire. And if this message made you feel seen or heard or understood, there's more where that came from. Stay with us here on the channel. You're never truly alone when we're walking this road together.